In Russia, where COVID-19 case numbers are surging in a fourth infection wave, 973 people died on Tuesday. That's Russia's highest official daily death toll since the start of the pandemic. The number of deaths in the country has been high since the summer, but the curve has risen sharply in the last few weeks, with the Delta variant and vaccine hesitancy driving the spread. DW's Moscow correspondent Juri Rescheto has more.
Ambulances are common enough on the streets of Moscow. But in the past few weeks, they are everywhere. The government has repeatedly declared that it's won the war against COVID-19. All the same, the coronavirus keeps reappearing.
Russia has been firmly in the grip of a fourth wave of the coronavirus for weeks. But it's only now that there seems to be a growing public awareness for that. And experts say it may already be too late to stop a dramatic rise in infections.
Hardly a day goes by without a new record being broken. The number of deaths is rising relentlessly. Some 8,000 coronavirus patients are in intensive care. 2/3 of the beds reserved for COVID-19 are already full in Moscow.
Today we are seeing more patients who are critically ill. They decline much more rapidly than in previous waves of COVID-19. It used to take 2 weeks and sometimes longer for patients to become critical. Now it's only 3 to 4 days.
Experts say one reason for the rapid spread of the Delta variant is that not enough Russians are getting vaccinated. Just under 1/3 of the population is fully immunized. Some Russians prefer to pay for a fake vaccination passport. They cost around 70 euros, says this woman, who prefers to remain anonymous. It's easy to get them online and in person. She transferred money to someone promising to send her a digital vaccination certificate. She's afraid of side effects from the vaccines. She doesn't believe being unvaccinated makes her a danger to others. She says anyone who wants to can get vaccinated. And she insists that if you are not sick and stick to the rules on public transport, no one needs to worry. But that is exactly the problem. Hardly anyone actually follows the hygiene rules or wears a mask in public. Many Russians have stopped believing official information about the coronavirus.
The authorities have become hostage to their own propaganda. At first, they said it wasn't that bad. They said, we can do this. Then they said, we have beaten the virus. Now, Russians are tired of hearing about coronavirus and act like children. They think if they hide, it won't find them. It's not because they're stupid, it's how they deal with it.
Moscow is planning to offer free testing. But the authorities aren't convinced that mandatory vaccinations and a national lockdown are the way to end the pandemic.
And DW's Juri Rescheto, who filed that report, joins us now from Moscow. Juri, tell us just how serious the situation is now with COVID-19 in the Russian capital.
Well, look, there is nothing to suggest a dramatic situation in Moscow. We have the best weather right now, sunshine and Indian summer, and if the ambulances weren't rushing through the streets so noticeably often, you wouldn't even know how bad the situation really is. Especially because everything is open and people hardly wear masks even inside. But you do notice that the coronavirus is still very much present when you talk to people. Because at this point, I don't know anyone who didn't have corona. Almost all of my friends, colleagues and relatives were already sick, and some of them were quite seriously ill, although they are young and mostly very healthy.
So I gather from your report that intensive care units are filling up, infections are rising. Are authorities confident that there's enough capacity in the hospitals, Juri, to cope with this situation?
I spoke to the doctor we saw in my report. He made it very clear that in Moscow, people don't have to worry that there are not enough beds in the hospitals. They are pretty well equipped here, and we already saw that if necessary, Moscow authorities will invest the money to build a COVID hospital fast. Last year, they built an infectious disease hospital in just over a month on the outskirts of Moscow. The situation, Terry, is very different in the regions. In some areas, there are no longer any free beds left for patients. These are conditions that already Russians had a year ago. And you can tell how dramatic the situation really is by the fact that even Russian state television is reporting on this lack of space in the main evening news.
You also mentioned in your report, Juri, that the public are becoming more conscious of the pandemic now. Are there any signs that that consciousness will translate into greater willingness to follow hygiene rules and get vaccinated?
Well, the public awareness of the coronavirus is slowly returning, which first of all means that the media and politicians are now talking about the pandemic again. That is the big difference to the West, where the virus has been present all along. Here in Russia, there was hardly any talk about COVID-19 for months. For a long time, the message was that Russia has beaten the coronavirus, and it was only when President Putin went into a so-called self-isolation a few weeks ago, and it became known that many people from his immediate surroundings in the Kremlin were infected, only then did the topic really get into the media again. The problem, however, is that none of this is obviously of any use. People are still not getting vaccinated. Currently, only about 30% of people are vaccinated.
Juri, good to see you. Our Moscow bureau chief, Juri Rescheto.